is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
There are many who are looking at this video who know exactly who you are. But for those who don't, please tell us who you are.
My name is Sultan Rahman Muhammad. I am the appointed student national Imam of the Nation of Islam by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'm a great-grandson of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and serve as Imam of Mosque Maryam here in Chicago. Number 2, so praise be to Allah. I'm a servant of our community, servant of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and I strive to be a better servant of God.
And this is a softball question, but we want to ask you, who has served in this capacity before you?
This is the first time an Imam has been appointed to any post of the Nation of Islam. So this is a first time for the nation in its more than 80-year history to have established in our structure a national Imam. So praise be to Allah. It is a historic post and position that I'm humbled to begin to attempt to define in the way that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is guiding this function. So it's a blessing. And this word Imam, it is an Arabic word. So it means one who is leading in prayer, a prayer leader, or one who leads the religious services and rites of the Muslims for a mosque or community. But it also has a broader meaning in that we as a people have been found by an Imam. That Imam is Imam Mahdi, Master Father Muhammad. We believe that he is the long-awaited great Mahdi of the Muslims. And this is the broadest context of what an Imam is. According to the writings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, an Imam is also equivalent to our scientists. So what we look at as Islam is the science of everything. So an Imam is one who looks into the insight of this physical, natural world around us to pull out the spiritual drive or will, but to keep rooted in our needs as a people. So the last aspect of this word Imam, it comes from the word which means mother. So it's like one who is in front. It literally means, Imam means one who is in front of me as a leader, but it also means like mother. As you see the chicken and the little chicks, you know, they follow the mother. You would say she is the Imam of her flock.
Beautiful.
So we're in a very special period in time for Muslims. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yes. Well, right now it's about 5 or so, 5:30. We as Muslims are instructed by God Himself in the Holy Quran. He uses the words لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. That the holy month of Ramadan, or fasting, siyamu, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. We have been given fasting so that we can learn to guard against evil. So taqwa, to teach us how to have regard for Allah, how to have regard for that which we claim is the supreme being, the author of all. And this is to build the will of self through a discipline of denial of the basic hungers of life, which are water, which is food. Our sex drive, those who are married do not engage in relations during the daylight hours, as we do not eat, drink. But most importantly, it is to sharpen the internal will to be able to filter those evils in life, those things that are hungers that are driving us in a way to shape ourselves, many times through ego. So in this month we're challenging our service to God. And the beauty of fasting itself is that among all of the rituals and rites of activity of Muslims, among the 5 principles, Ramadan, or fasting itself, is an act that only you know that you are observing, you and Allah God Himself. And we say this consistently to remind us that it's an introspective time, but we must look at how our own shortcomings affect the community and the ones we love directly. So fasting, this holy month of Ramadan here in 2017, we are now in the summer months, there are long days, so it is a challenge, but the biggest challenge is not so much the thirst and the hunger, and that is a challenge, but it is really to keep our tempers in check, to also have a taste of what our people and those who are in poverty and in want go through, not knowing what is there for sustenance or food. Some in many Muslim countries around the world don't have anything to break their fast with, and we worry about, how much light is in the sky and when can I eat a full meal, while many of us are around the world suffering from a man-made problem called poverty.
This is a 2-part question.
Yes, sir.
What is the most often asked question of people who are Muslims about Ramadan, and the most oft asked question of those who are not Muslim about Ramadan?
In the spirit of questioning, particularly in the first part of the question among Muslims, really, I want to say the most often asked question among Muslims is, when do I eat? And when do I stop eating? These are the two questions. And fortunately, many would say unfortunately, and unfortunately it does become some wrangling among those who are filled with pride and ego and think they know, but unfortunately, and fortunately for us, there's a range. God says, very clearly in the Holy Quran when to start and when to stop. But we begin to ask questions about, well, how light should it be? What exactly does it mean that it should be a thread of light or a thread of dark? What does that mean? Well, the reality is God is not going to kill us for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. It's about our intention. Are we worrying too much about cheating, or are we questioning ourselves out of the obligation, out of the duty? The beauty about the fast, part 2 of this for the Muslim community, is what do I do when I cannot fast? In other words, I am sick, I'm on a journey, there's something physical that prevents me from fasting, although I desire to. What the answer would be is what Allah God says in the section about the prescription of fasting, and that is to feed someone. Feed someone. This is the spirit: freedom, justice, equality. Ramadan is not only about the disciplining of self, but it's about the transformation of our society. So we cut the excess with self and therefore cut excessive use of material and benefit that can go to our people. So it's about the distribution of wealth, the distribution of food. We find during the holy month of Ramadan, we save money on food. Wow, I can eat less and save money and still live. And that would be a great segue into the other question from those who are not Muslim but want to know more about fasting. Aren't you going to die if you don't eat? If you don't eat, you're fasting from food, water, and this, that can't be healthy. So this idea of even self-denial among those who are not Muslim, particularly in a culture that is driven by consumption, driven by the hungers, driven by the impulsive buying and so forth. And this translates into how we snack throughout the day. We find that we are consuming more than necessary. The United States of America consumes more than any nation on this planet, as it relates per capita, and in terms of waste, the same. So we have to look at what we have culturally and in society have been molded into to believe is necessary for the sustaining of life. 1 meal a day is enough. Actually less. We can live going with only a meal every 3 days. So this is what we've been taught by our teachers. Our teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is that in the food is yes life, but in the food is also death. So the longer we can deny ourselves food, even in those foods that are good for us, there is some toxicity. So we can't escape, I want to say, the impurities of some foods, but we definitely limit and lengthen our lives by reducing our food intake, and also in the process wake ourselves up to the reality of how much we are consuming while others are in want.
Kind of going on the same point, and I believe you kind of touched on it, but can you go into, we've noticed an increase of individuals who don't necessarily see themselves as being Muslims actually participating in Ramadan. What would you attribute that to?
I attribute that to, in terms of people who are participating now in the holy month of Ramadan with Muslims, although they are not, I would attribute it to, I think, 2 points. One, not quote Christian, not quote Muslim or Judaic, Western society, but we in America have found something good in yoga. So it is a tool, a discipline that helps the body, helps the mind and spirit. With the holy month of Ramadan, what I believe is that right now, the East and the West are in a clash of cultures. But in that clash of culture, you have a synthesis that ultimately comes out. That some are clashing, but some are learning to reconcile their differences and knowledge about what Islam represents. So in fasting with the Muslims in solidarity, many are showing that, one, there is respect for the discipline and what it does to bring health and wellness to the body, and the spirit behind it is to serve the community and feed the poor. Who can say something is wrong with that? And the other aspect is that the fasting itself, being with Muslims, showing solidarity at a time when Muslims are under attack. I can't even count how many. I mean, it is literally, like you said, a rise, a movement of those who are finding that Muslims are being unjustly targeted and our lifestyles unjustly targeted, so as something evil or wrong, particularly under this administration with President Trump, you know, advancing that we should have a list, you know, of Muslims in America and the travel ban and so forth. So you find that rising, I believe, for those two reasons, is one, solidarity of what people know to be right and standing with freedom, justice, and equality for humanity itself, and two, finding something good for self, wellness of self and wellness of community and family.
What is the biggest question that people should be asking, regardless of those three categories: supporters, practitioners, or non-believers, about Ramadan?
Yes, we should be asking ourselves, are we living up to the standard of excellence, the standard of who we think we are? Ramadan exposes yourself to yourself. If you make a commitment to yourself and God that I will abstain from this, and it becomes a struggle. This is what we discuss in the Nation of Islam. Our language is self-creation, to bring ourselves out of a dark state and manifest the will of God. So if we find in our lives that it is difficult for us to achieve our goals, we have to ask why. If we find in our lives that, man, that prayer is not being answered, we have to ask why. So we have to study our prayers. We have to study our devotion, and are they being answered? This forces us to ask a question. Who is our God? And is that God working for me? And most times, we will find that our God is a base desire, a base hunger for either ego, pride, vanity, the desire for attention, wealth, ambition. We will find that a false idea of self is our God. So we should be asking ourselves during this holy month, who am I as it relates to the Creator? Who am I as it relates to who I believe I am and my capacity to fulfill my objectives, goals, and desires in life? Are my prayers being answered? If not, we will find that through a simple discipline, like fasting, like abstaining, will give us the will, will build the will of the individual, because they're able to say no to a drink of water while they're thirsty, to say no to a plate of food while you're hungry, or a snack. And you'll find I have extra money, I have extra time, I'm not engaged in gossip and slandering, and I'm not engaged in idle talk and binge watching. I'm actually filling myself with the spiritual food of our readings of the Holy Quran in this month of righteous material. And we begin to see that we return to the innocence, the nature of self, which is the objective of this month, is to return to our original selves.
Now, I believe a few weeks ago, maybe when we first started Ramadan, you actually made a connection with the course of study that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan put us on, self-improvement, the basis for community development.
Absolutely.
So can you kind of speak into that and how Ramadan plays into that and just the value of that course of study, in particular as it relates to Ramadan?
Yes. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has developed a series of study guides called Self-Improvement Self-Improvement, the Basis of Community Development. These guides, just in the title, point to the reality of our condition. Allah God says in the Quran, Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change the condition that is within themselves. Allah has given us free will. He has given us a piece of will. This makes us able to have power, force. Why are we having trouble in our lives? Why are we having obstacles in our lives? Why are our communities in shambles? It's because our lives are in shambles. So the self reflects the community. When we go through the study guides and the process that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has given us, we will see that they are designed to awaken the self. The self-accusing spirit is the key to start with, because most of us are in a spirit, a stage of self that is animalistic. When we're thirsty, we drink. When we're hungry, we eat. This is how we are conditioned to think. But the holy month of Ramadan, which the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan states in the study guides, is given to us to discipline ourselves to help build our will. So why can't we have a savings? Why is it so hard for black people to put away a little money every week, to say no to the night out to dinner, to say no to the lottery ticket, to say no to the night out at the club, to say no to the nearly $100 it would take to just take your family to a movie and dinner? It's, what is excess? So many that are denied, and we have to look at this, many that are denied the rights of quality life, once they are made available to you and they are in our reach by God's grace, we tend to consume in excess because we are still stuck with the mind of having less. And then we begin to hoard. So the fasting in the study guides of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, along with, oh my goodness, a world of knowledge to help improve ourselves, is the key, is one of the keys that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan deals with to attack envy, pride, jealousy, excess. All of these drives of the self and hungers of the self that lead to the destruction of our communities. So the self-improvement course is something not just for Muslims. This is for humanity, to awaken us to the knowledge of self, to rise above emotion into the thinking of God, to come out of the animal self into a self-accusing spirit that will then allow us to correct ourselves, and then place ourselves in heaven at once. Because that is the next step. After the self-accusing spirit, you then become at ease. After the accusing begins and your heart is listening and being purified, after a while, as you raise a child, as you train a horse or a wild animal, after a while, then it becomes the form. So, meaning, once we are done training and accusing and putting the base self in its place, then we rise into a place of security, of peace of mind. And that's heaven. That's heaven while we live.
At the end of Ramadan, there's a feast,
Yes,
a
sir.
festival, a gathering. And then there's some ease as we go back into our regular daily routine of eating during the daylight hours. Besides fasting, are there any other principles of Ramadan that should be discarded?
During,
Are there any other principles of Ramadan that should be discarded for the rest of the year?
I'm not quite capturing. Can you please restate the question?
Restate the question. Yes, so after Ramadan, what principles of Ramadan should we continue to carry on?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, 2-point question. Yes. First, at the end of the holy month of Ramadan, there's an Eid fest. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad speaks of them as the great gatherings. The first is the weekly Friday gathering. And then he states, then we come together as a Muslim community in 2 broader gatherings called the Eids. And these are festivals. Eid is a word that means festival or celebration. But we have 2 major Eids in the Islamic world, and that is Eid al-Adha, which is for the holy month of Hajj, at the end of the rites of Hajj, which is called the Festival of Sacrifice, where food is distributed to the most needy. And you'll find the same in the Eid al-Fitr, which is called the Festival of Return, oft returning happiness, meaning returning or renewal of the self. So Fitr meaning the original nature in which we have been created. So that celebration is based on the spirit of a saying of Muhammad, peace be upon him, where the first 10 days of the month are looked at as the days of mercy. The second 10 days of the month of fasting are looked at as the days of forgiveness. And the last 10 days are looked at as the days of freedom from the fire of sin and freedom from our own issues that have locked us into the problems that we are seeing, not only with self, but with community. The holy month of Ramadan, the celebration of Eid al-Fitr is to also distribute food to the community. So this is something that we have to not only do, as our brother's suggesting under the question, is that we can't be Ramadan Muslims. We can't be those who practice the faith only in its intensity during a holy month or season. These are practices that are designed to take us with a provision, again, with what God is telling us, He is teaching us at this time. And that provision is taqwa. It is an Arabic word that means vigilance. It means to be on guard. It means to have regard and to not exceed the bounds and to protect the purity of our innocence. To walk our post in a perfect manner, keeping always on the alert. So to be alert of all of those things that would take us out of our natural humanity. So this is something of the willpower, the taqwa, the shield of righteousness that we are to carry throughout the year and be agents of change in our community and transformation in our community. Feeding the poor. Should we only do that during Ramadan? Self-discipline. Should we only do that during the month of Ramadan? Reading our holy scriptures. Should we do that only during the month of Ramadan? So this provision that Allah states in the Quran that one takes that is most important for his Hajj or journey to Mecca, that provision is not wealth or money or extra clothes because you may stay a longer time. But the provision that Allah God says take with you on your journey for Hajj, which is representative of the journey of life, is this thing called taqwa, this thing called regard, God consciousness. Regard for Allah, God, regard for self, community, and regard for the well-being of humanity.
So, are there any closing words you would like to share?
Well, this is our holy month of Ramadan 2017. We, by the grace of Allah at Mosque Maryam, headquarters of the Nation of Islam, have been hosting iftar dinners. And this word iftar means the breaking of fast. It just means break fast or breakfast. So during the holy month of Ramadan, Muslims have their breakfast at after sunset. So we come together, which is another aspect of Ramadan, which is extremely important, and that's the building of community, building of relationships. So we come together to break our fast over food. So you can imagine what a joyous occasion that is if you fasted 16 hours, 15 hours, and you're now enjoying food, tasting it as though it was the first time you've tasted a bowl of bean soup. It is a beautiful way to share fellowship, brotherhood, and sisterhood over food after having denied ourselves our basic hunger. So we, throughout the month of Ramadan, are feeding the community, our mosque members, and we invite everyone out to partake. And this is something that we have to do as families. We don't eat together anymore. So also what Ramadan does is it brings entire communities together to eat with one another, to come to a table. And we know what Mama taught us, table manners. So there's a code when you come to the table. There's a code when you bring community together. And this establishes a framework for brotherhood and sisterhood that can heal our hearts, heal our communities. So you can visit Mosque Maryam for iftar. We also encourage believers or any who wish to partake in the fast, Muslim or not, to visit noi.org/Ramadan or islamicsciences.noi.org, which will give you free courses on Ramadan readiness, on the prayers in English and Arabic, and the sciences of Islam. And we must remember that every rite or ritual of the Muslim is a storehouse, an institution of a spirit, of a principle that must be taken into action in our communities for the transformation and the rise of humanity across the planet.
Thank you.